Good day and good morning, ALA members, and welcome to the 2025 ALA President-elect Candidates Forum. My name is Emily Drabinski, and I'm proud to be the ALA's immediate past president, and I'm so pleased to be moderating today's forum. And so good to be in community with all of you. This is a time when we really need to stick together. With me is Adrian Stratton, ALA parliamentarian and ALA governance staff, who will help me moderate today's forum. The floor will be open for questions from attendees. Members were also provided the opportunity to submit questions prior to today's forum. To formally ask a question, please type your question in the Q&A box. To identify yourself, please state your name, your affiliation, and your question. The chat feature will not be available. For optimal viewing, we encourage you to set up your Zoom view to speaker view, which can be located in the top right-hand corner of the Zoom webinar. Closed captioning is available at the bottom of your screen. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted on ALA's YouTube channel. For the forum today, we have asked each candidate to give a 5-minute opening statement. After the candidates have given their presentations, the floor will be open to questions from the audience. All respective candidates will have up to 2 minutes to respond to each question. The forum will end with each candidate presenting a 2-minute closing statement or summary. It is now my great pleasure to introduce you to the ALA President-elect candidates for the 2025 ALA election. The 2026-27 ALA presidential candidates are Maria McCauley, Director of Libraries, Cambridge Public Library, Cambridge, Massachusetts. Lindsay Cronk, Dean of Libraries, Tulane University, New Orleans. We received word this morning that Andrea Jameson, Assistant Professor of School Librarianship at Illinois State University, has withdrawn from the race. We deeply thank Dr. Jameson for her willingness to serve. Please note that the following presentation order for our candidates was determined by lot. First, we will hear from Maria McCauley and then from Lindsay Cronk. I will now ask presidential candidate Maria McCauley to present an opening statement.
This is a critical moment for our democracy, our communities, our libraries, and the American Library Association. It is vital that we pull together across ALA to strengthen and support the association and each other through this time of uncertainties. I want to take a moment to talk about what is at stake, the many challenges we face, and why I believe I am the right candidate to work alongside ALA's members and staff to meet these challenges so that together we emerge as a stronger association and profession. What is at stake? Intellectual freedom. We recently heard about the removal of books from the Department of Defense schools that could be related to gender or racial justice. And dozens of state legislators are currently considering censorship bills. The spread of misinformation. The Department of Education recently called book bans a hoax and eliminated their book ban coordinator. ALA countered with its Show Up for Libraries campaign. Targeting of library workers and institutions, and more legislation that is adverse to library operations and values. Legislation that criminalizes library workers for doing their jobs. And we saw the recent firing of the Archivist of the United States. And funding. Funding concerns about E-rate, the Institute of Museum and Library Services, Department of Education, National Institutes of Health, and the National Science Foundation. The federal reduction of overhead and federal cuts will impact library funding across library sectors. And all of this is happening while social inequities persist and are widening. Our patrons, especially vulnerable community members, need our expertise and libraries even more. This is also a challenging time for ALA. We've had leadership transitions. We're recruiting our next executive director, and ALA, like most professional associations, is struggling to maintain its membership numbers and is facing revenue shortfalls. At this critical time, I will bring to the ALA presidency my deep and varied leadership experience in the association and its divisions, and also utilized my emotionally intelligent executive leadership abilities. Over the past 25 years, I've enjoyed a rich career in academic and public libraries, including directing libraries for the past 13. Through my career, I've been an active and engaged ALA member, starting as a Spectrum Scholar in the class of 1999. As a member of ALA's executive board, I was part of the team that hired and onboarded a new executive director. I helped an ALA navigate the worst of the pandemic. I served as a liaison to many divisions, roundtables, and committees. As a member of the board's Finance and Audit Committee, I helped provide financial and audit oversight and clearer reporting. As PLA president, I presided over board meetings, filled committee appointments, and led the board in updating PLA's strategic plan to ensure equity, diversity, inclusion, and social justice, and to strengthen communications with committees. As an official PLA spokesperson, I co-hosted some ALA NBC Banned Books Club sessions to promote intellectual freedom. As a library director, I've hosted events welcoming local, state, and national legislators to the Cambridge Public Library to celebrate libraries and strengthen funding. As a member of ALA's Committee on Legislation, I help advance our national legislative agenda, including through visits to congresspersons. What I offer as a candidate is someone who understands the internal and external responsibilities of the job and has succeeded in similar roles within the association. Someone who understands ALA's governance and its divisions. Someone with a long track record leading different kinds of libraries in different areas of the country. Someone who motivates and mobilizes people to plan and act for the betterment of society. I meet and exceed these qualifications. I'm ready to serve, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
I will now ask presidential candidate Lindsay Kronk to present an opening statement.
Hey, everybody. Happy Friday. Libraries have always been more than books or book bans. We're about people, power, and possibility. And right now, our profession stands at a crossroads. We are facing unprecedented challenges, and I'm not going to shy away from any of them. Threats not only to the freedom of read, but personal threats on library workers, increasing disinformation that the public needs our help and expertise to sort through. But we are also in a moment of absolutely incredible possibility. Libraries are more relevant than ever. And while it's a tough time, I do encourage everyone in this room to think and reflect on the unique power we have in this moment to take a different path, to choose a different, bolder, more courageous path forward, shaping the future of education, research, and civic life. The question before us isn't how we defend against these challenges, it's how we lead, how we harness our collective power. How do we build an ALA that isn't reactive, but proactive, confident, safe, thriving, and a profession that is too. An organization that shapes the future rather than scrambling to catch up with it. I'm running because I believe in the strength of our collective voice. My career has been built on collaboration, problem solving, and lifting up the people who make libraries work. As Dean of Libraries at Tulane, I've led large-scale transformation with transparency, courage, and a deep respect for my team. I know that change is only successful when people feel valued, heard, and empowered to act. And that's exactly how I'll lead ALA. Here's my vision. ALA has to work as hard for you as you have worked for ALA. To accomplish this, I suggest 3 key focuses. First and foremost, championing library work. Library workers need ALA to be their strongest advocate. We need that right now more than ever. And too often our expertise has been dismissed and overlooked by funders, by even the public. And we must shift the narrative to show that libraries are essential infrastructure for community and cultural memory. We need ALA to fight for fair wages, workplace protections, and respect we deserve. I will ensure ALA takes a stronger, more visible role in advocating for every library worker. We need to strengthen ALA's Allied Professional Association. Wage equity is the make or break issue of our time. The attrition we see in ALA, the financial struggles we see in ALA, mirror the struggles that we see in libraries, not only across the country, but across the world. ALA APA can be a powerhouse for wage advocacy and job protections, and I will ensure it serves every library worker, regardless of institution, funding model, or career stage. And third, we really need to increase our public advocacy. And I do want to acknowledge that ALA has been taking strides in this direction. But I also want to point out that we know 85% of the public supports libraries. Why does it feel like we are playing a losing hand instead of a winning one? United for Libraries is key to helping mobilize our supporters. I love libraries can be our megaphone, but we need to turn passive support into active advocacy. I also believe very firmly that leadership should be joyful. We do hard and important work, but our profession is ultimately built on imagination and possibility. And we can bring that same energy to ALA too. We can build the organization that lifts us up, that empowers us to meet challenges with confidence, that makes libraries the force for shaping a future that is brighter, more equitable, and less dominance obsessed for education, research, and civic engagement. I love this profession and I love ALA, which is why maybe I chose to take on this challenge, because ALA deserves a leader who is bold, strategic, and unafraid to take action. And I'd be honored to have your support in making the ALA we deserve stronger, more dynamic, and more impactful than ever. Also more jubilant, more giving, more abundant, less a scarcity mindset. We can get there because when libraries lead, communities succeed. I've spent almost 2 decades working to find member-driven solutions to the challenges our profession faces, using ALA as one channel among many to do so. You can count on me to enlist your perspectives and champion your expertise, but I also know that that will only take us so far. The choice in this campaign is one of approach, and I ask for your vote because I will make ALA work for you as much as you have worked for ALA. Thank you. You can find out more about my campaign at cronkthevote.com.
Thank you, Maria and Lindsay. We will now take questions from the audience. Again, if you wish to ask a question, please type the question in the Q&A. We ask audience members to specify whether a question is directed to a specific candidate. Otherwise, the question will be answered by both. We will do our best to answer all questions. However, if time does not permit, then we encourage you to attend the 30-minute Meet the Candidate session immediately following this forum to connect with the candidate. Please also check out their candidate website. Their information will be provided in the chat. And now we welcome your questions.
Don't be shy, ALA. I know you've had a long week, probably. We all have.
From Kestrel Ward, Counselor at Large, for both candidates, what is one thing you would like to champion to materially help frontline library workers? And we'll begin with you, Maria.
Yeah, so first of all, I think it's really important to acknowledge the tough times and to make sure that frontline workers know that I will fight for library workers for positions and funding and assistance on censorship challenges. I have been doing this. I've submitted testimony in support of H4005, an act ensuring freedom to read, which includes protecting school librarians. And I think it's really important tactically to make sure that we're tapping in and making sure that library workers know about support networks, such as via Urban Librarians Unite and We Hear. These are really great groups who are helping people to process trauma with various healing modalities. And in addition to those groups, I think that it's really important that we train up library leaders to make sure that they know how to best support their teams. And from the learnings that I've done, that in addition to supporting with, say, group therapies or talk therapies, that other supports include somatic healing practices, so physical healing practices. We're hosting our staff development day this spring, and we're going to be bringing in a massage therapist to do chair massages. Sound healing baths are another way to support teams, meditation and journaling, and also to support the public. So I think that there's a lot around direct support that ALA can be doing, and it might be ALA APA that makes the most sense in terms of offering those workshops and support, and making sure that library leaders are trained and encouraged to do the work to support their teams. And then, of course, supporting freedom to read legislation is also important. Thank you.
So I love the question because to me, it gets to the heart of what I've been trying to focus on throughout my campaign, which is what are the barriers to our profession being healthy and sustainable, and how can ALA be the tool and platform that gets us to a place where we are? I've been reflecting a lot here as we look at 150 years of the American Library Association, right, on what the next 150 will require of us and how we can, when someone runs for this position in 150 years, I want them to have totally different problems, right? I want us to have taken direct action to solve particularly the challenges of precarity and disrespect and fundamental devaluing that we see our frontline library workers facing. To do that, I think we have a few levers to pull as an association. Certainly, we do need to have support networks in place. We do need to provide resources. Those are fundamental librarian ways we approach this, right? That is part of our expertise and part of how we leverage our expertise. But I also think that we need to be providing clear documentation around what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable. And one of the absent documents in my assessment that we need to have in place for the next 150 years is not only that Library Bill of Rights, but a Library Workers Bill of Rights. And it would be something that I would prioritize in terms of the appointment of folks to positions to sort of advance that agenda. Having documentation means that our administrators and leaders are in a better position to ensure the safety and well-being of frontline library workers. Right now, in the absence of standards, and this is a very, again, my cataloging and collections background are showing up, but in the absence of standards, we see the sort of bullying and disrespect taking place. We need the documentation there. And I've often, joked with library friends that we are not the best at documentation, despite our amazing documentation around description. We can do this. Thank you for the question.
ALA members were also given an opportunity to submit questions in advance. Marcia, can you share one of those questions with us?
Sure. What will ALA look like in 2025 with the new leadership? And how do we as members support the new leadership goals?
We'll begin with Lindsay.
So in 2025, we're facing challenges, right? That Maria, I think, articulated very clearly, that we all know very well. We know our challenges extraordinarily well in libraries. But 2025 also offers us unique opportunities for fundraising, the unique opportunity of bringing in a new executive director with a fresh perspective, and a lot of learning that we had as an organization the hard way, right, in the past few years. So what I think we can do in 2025 to position ourselves for a stronger and more vibrant future is learning from some of those past challenges and mistakes. So getting a lot clearer in our financial communications to members to rebuild trust, getting really clear about what our priorities are and how we're going to focus in on them, and being also very clear and kind and concise in our messaging with members so that it doesn't feel as though in our work to either share the challenges or share the successes, we are missing the mark in a situation, a circumstance, a worldview that requires so much nuance. But it is both, you know. Part of the reason I chose to run the campaign I have run with its focus on joy is that I live in a remarkable city, New Orleans, Louisiana, and we just had Mardi Gras here. And a lot of the Mardi Gras energy, a lot of what we were all dealing with was grief, right? Was difficulty, was a city that is climate precarious, in a challenging place, a very poor city. All of that was true while we still found joy and community in one another. So the other thing that I would say, for my candidacy and for my hopes for the next year would be, how do we bring one another back together and remind one another of the great joy of being in community with one another? Because that's what ultimately the American Library Association is. It's an association of members, and we choose to do this work together. We can advance a greater agenda. But right now, in the spirit of mutual aid and radical care, I think one of the most important things we can do is just be there for one another. Thank you for the question.
So 2025, new leadership and support for new leadership goals. My leadership style, I would bring my leadership style. It's been described as inspiring, inclusive, compassionate, and collaborative. And I think that's important. Those qualities are important to bring to ALA. And I'm communicative, so I would really work on the communications. And I have 4 areas of focus that I would get started on. And actually in the next year, in terms of planning, increasing equity and access. How can we do this? How can we support library leaders and frontline staff to make sure that we're doing all we can to support equity and access, even in today's challenges? I want to bring back Jim Reddick scholarships for a day and engage diverse students in exploring libraries as a career at conference sites. I will commit to and continue to do the work in advocating for libraries and intellectual freedom. I think that has to be a huge priority. And this will include working with building coalitions and partnerships with ALA groups, state chapters and offices, and others. So it is an approach that is working in concert with others. My third area is to deepen the membership experience. This is, I think, at the heart of increasing our membership and for people to see the value of their membership. I want people to have as good of an experience as I had coming in as a Spectrum Scholar, having a cohort of peers who looked like me and supported me, and having peer member leaders who were saying, we are rooting for you. Everybody should have that experience. So I plan to start a peer member learning and growing journey program where informally people can be matched up and they can check in via Zoom, support each other in their careers, talk about their involvement with ALA, and maybe meet up in person at conferences as well. And then I will promote sustainability. That is one of my platforms. So supporting all the great work being done in the sustainability space. That is how my new leadership would look in 2025.
We'll now take a question from Leah Richardson. For both candidates, what specific ideas do you have to improve ALA's financial situation? Maria, you'll be.
Thank you. So there's the challenges around the finances, as I understand it, is that it's cash flow issues and liquidity issues. And I think it will be really important to work closely with the incoming treasurer, the incoming executive director, finance staff, and the executive board to review, inquire, and provide oversight on strategies to improve the finances. I have a professional fundraising background, and I will work with the development director and the executive director to help to raise contributed revenue from individuals and from private foundations to help to offset potential loss of federal funds. I will also support the membership team and the membership committee in the good work that they're doing to increase membership, including from non-library members with the For Our Libraries campaign, and also ask people to renew their memberships if they can. Thanks.
Lindsay?
Yeah, so I have a lot of strong and I think widely known opinions about ALA's financial situation. And it's always been a part of my leadership is thinking about how do we make the association sustainable and strong? Because sometimes those cash flow issues, to Maria's point, it leads to a lack of confidence. You can't feel strong and grounded in an association where when you ask a colleague to teach a class, they may not get paid for it for months, right? We have some real concrete challenges that I do think we need to address explicitly. And I think we need to be open about the challenges too, because I've also been highly involved in member-driven activities that have helped to shore up and solidify the association. To sort of briefly describe, as a member of the Library Information Technology Association, which is one of the 3 divisions that merged into Core Leadership Infrastructure Futures, I became aware over time that the finances of my division were shaky. And then I became aware of the fact that the finances for many divisions were shaky. And what we did was we came together to figure out how are we going to make sure that our homes within the association are strong, are there, are available, even if it requires us to think creatively and use resources differently. Those are the sorts of conversations that members can have on behalf of ALA. Some of the work behind the scenes needs to happen behind the scenes. ALA is also a nonprofit organization that is hugely complex. But I do think that if we're asking members to invest, and I would say that is our strongest single strategy to Lisa's question, is to ask members to invest in ALA, we need to be providing return on investment information to them. There need to be clearer outcomes. And those outcomes can't always be a website where we're affirming that book bans are real, right? Or a website where we list some statistics, but not about finances. So thanks, Leah.
Next, we'll take a pre-submitted question. Marcia?
If elected president, how do you envision strengthening the ecosystem of libraries, including school and academic libraries, and eliminate the barriers of how such libraries are funded to work on focusing on how we best serve patrons together?
And we'll start with you, Lindsay.
Yeah, and I do love the question, and I love the ecosystem thinking. It's been revelatory for me to sort of dig into this. I'm gonna use an example because I think that for me, it's where it started to resonate. You need to have examples for the ecosystem to make sense to the membership, and the example I'm going to use is literacy, which is really foundational. But I'm an academic librarian, and there was an article in the Atlantic, I want to say 4 or 5 months ago, which was basically sending off an alarm call that students are arriving to places of higher education unprepared to read full books. They have grown accustomed to reading segments of text, but they no longer have the attention span or the ability to engage with the full book text. This was, again, something that blew the lid off my mind because it let me make sense of behavior I was seeing in my own libraries, things I was hearing from students. That's not a problem that academic libraries solve alone, right? That is a problem that requires the work and coordination of school libraries, public libraries, higher ed, all kinds of libraries to address, because ultimately we are collectively responsible for our society and our communities as spaces of readers. People need to have this skill for our society to advance, and we have a shared responsibility around this. Ecosystem thinking means that we can take on those big challenges collectively and also tell the story of the impact of that collective effort more effectively. ALA is uniquely positioned as the representative group for all of these library types to then take that out and tell our success stories, but also, again, be really open and honest about what isn't working so we can continue to work and refine on it together in a way that doesn't put all of the impetus or the stress on any single institution or any single librarian. When we are working in isolation, that's the problem. The ecosystem is the cure. Thank you.
Maria? Please go ahead, Marie.
Yeah, thank you. So I agree that ALA is best positioned to, as an umbrella organization where there are many different kinds of libraries and library workers within ALA, to show the interrelationships of the really important, impactful work that we are doing every day. And Lindsay brought up a great example of literacy, and I want to give another example that's really related to literacy and wraparound services too. And this is just one example of how I would help to amplify this thinking. So public school academic and health organizations can work together on sharing research on the importance of school libraries, importance of wraparound services, and the interconnectedness so that young people don't fall through the cracks, that there are safety nets through wraparound services, including with our libraries. And a local example in Cambridge is that one of the things that we worked on is before we did it was around a kindergarten campaign and a library card campaign. And before we did this, about 60% of parents or caretakers would sign off on permission slips, and we get those cards into the hands of kindergartners. We switched this through readings with the school committee, working at a pretty high level to change the ruling so that we could do an opt-out instead of an opt-in. And this has shifted to getting public library cards into the hands of kindergartners over 95%. So I think that that is an example of how we can work across the ecosystem. Thank you.
Our next question is from Carolyn Kaywood. What specific actions have you taken to support intellectual freedom? And we'll begin with you, Maria.
Thank you. I've done a lot of things. I've testified, I've submitted testimony. I have, I mentioned that I co-hosted the ALA NBC Banned Books Club, which was, had channels nationally. I've spoken about the importance of intellectual freedom, meeting with legislators at the national level as well. And I'm on the Committee on Legislation, and then also at the local level. We just hosted a library legislative breakfast where 70 legislators, local, state, and national representatives came, and we talked about the importance of the right to read. And I think it's nuanced. Sometimes when I'm talking to media or people, the message is, you don't want somebody else telling your family or what to read. And then sometimes it's, more lofty about talking about the importance of seeing other people represented, seeing yourself represented in literature, and then also learning about our greater humanity by reading literature about people who are different and have different human experiences. Thank you.
Lindsay?
Yeah, so I'm gonna highlight some tactical work and then some sort of broader work on the subject. So tactically on the ground here at Tulane, a lot of the work of advancing intellectual freedom focuses on stuff like strengthening our collection strategies and collection documentation, right? And sharing that out to the broader ecosystem so that people can reuse it. Expanding open research and investment in programming that means that researchers in the Global South have access to Tulane scholarship, have access to research that's available everywhere. There's the pieces of the freedom to read that also have to do with the very foundational work of how are we making sure that access is broad and correct. And then, on the tail end, we deal with all of the challenges around disinformation and educating people around critical information literacy. I've also done a lot of work in terms of advocating for library workers. I serve on the Association of Research Libraries Advocacy and Public Policy Committee, and we've been doing a lot of proactive work to think about what is the role of research libraries in this conversation and how do we lift up points that are being made, right, again, in other areas of the ecosystem so that there is a clear sense of continuity, a shared spirit of the library messaging on this. And I've also, in keynotes and presentations, really gone on the record emphasizing the role of libraries in protecting information access, fostering critical thinking, and again, serving as a safeguard against censorship. I'm on the 5-year fundraising team for Core Leadership, Infrastructure, and Futures, and we're thinking about this as something that we are fundraising for as well. And finally, in terms of my local work, I want to highlight the opportunity that we have to invest in uplifting the stories of marginalized people, uplifting their voices, making sure that the library is also a channel for that, not just, again, protecting the freedom to read, but also freedom of speech is deeply important to me and central to my practice as a librarian.
Marcia, can you share a pre-submitted question?
Will ALA support DEI initiatives, both internally and externally, in the broader library community when such efforts are threatened by funders, governing bodies, and the general public?
Lindsay, we'll begin with you.
We have to. It's in our foundational values. We must. We have an imperative. And I think again the challenge and the opportunity as someone who's done most of their work and spent most of their career in places where it's no one takes offense to when you talk about equity. No one takes offense when you talk about diverse voices. No one takes offense when you talk about how are we going to make this event more inclusive. It's the stringing of the letters together seems to have hit a nerve, perhaps unfairly. And there are opportunities for us to continue to advance the work and also make sure that we're mitigating potential harm to library workers. But yeah, there's no way we're walking away from diversity, equity, and inclusion at ALA. It's fundamental to the work of access. It's fundamental to the work of libraries. We need to be strategic in the ways that we do work, but it should never alter what our values are.
Maria?
Yeah, thank you. As a librarian and a person of color and a spectrum scholar, I am a product of ALA's equity work. And equity and access are core values of ALA. And I believe that for libraries to fulfill their missions, supporting equity and inclusion is a key part of our work. We may need to update our policies to make sure we are protecting this work. I do acknowledge that it's a really difficult time for library leaders across many industries when they are being asked and expected or directed to scrub EDI language from their websites. And I think it's really important, and my ask to library leaders is to be courageous in doing what they can to support equity, diversity, inclusion work for their communities. And I believe ALA has a really unique role to play in this, in being a safeguard and a convener for offering continued training and support and funding for both staff and library leadership to gather together, to discuss, lean into what can be done, to hear perspectives from colleagues around the United States and internationally, and to plan for the future.
Our next question is from Karen Schneider. For both candidates, the president serves on the executive board. How will you help the board function as an effective team? And we'll begin with you, Maria.
Thank you. I've done a lot of board advancement work, and I've done a lot of work on helping with structures to help teams work effectively together. At my home institution, as part of our equity work, we went through a 6-month process of creating ways of being. So those are principles of how we want to be in space together, how we acknowledge each other, and that those are rooting group norms for when we have meetings, the way we just say hello to each other. And I think I can bring some of that work into helping with the executive board. Another thing that I've done a lot of work on, another area, is on making sure that we have inclusive meeting practices. And I've done that at the local level, making sure that we are communicating, that we are honoring each other, that we're clear about decision-making processes, the way we're making decisions, and that we're communicating out results. And I've also done this in PLA. And part of my work at PLA as PLA president was to make sure that I was bringing and leading in inclusive practices for the PLA board. And I would bring that to the executive board. Thank you.
Lindsay.
Yeah, team building is my absolute favorite. And I've written and spoken on the topic because no individual can accomplish or deal with the kinds of problems that we're solving. So I would treat the executive board as my first team, right? The critical advisors, the collective strength on which we can lean. Like Maria, I love the practices and some of the, I would go so far as to call them the business astrologies that we can bring into this work. I love StrengthsFinder is behind me on that. I would love to know more about sort of what are our collective strengths and how can we help one another navigate this effectively. I run a tight meeting. I believe very firmly in agenda setting and goal setting and tracking towards progress. So I would consider that a way that we could ensure clarity, right? Have shared understanding of what we're hoping to accomplish and achieve. And also, like anyone who's going to be running for this position, Maria talked a little bit about her experience. I became CORE's first elected president in the midst of the pandemic. We are all tested, trauma-informed leaders, trust-tested, crisis-informed leaders. So even though we are likely to have more shakes ahead of us, I think that working with the executive board, I would have confidence in their background to navigate that. We could have confidence in the association to help navigate that. It's just a question to the membership, right? Of who do you believe would do the best job of bringing that team to bear on behalf of ALA, the membership, and more broadly, librarianship as a profession.
Marcia, please share a pre-submitted question.
This is from the Intellectual Freedom Roundtable. What kind of parental rights should we support in libraries? What kinds of student rights? And how do we make uncensored accounts of U.S. history available to students of all ages?
We'll begin with you, Lindsay.
Yeah, I wanted to be sure before I chimed in. So I love that we're calling out some of the tensions around this. And actually, I think Maria did a great job talking about when you're framing things for an audience, you might frame sort of the question of intellectual freedom or parental rights in a specific way. For me, as a young reader, having unmitigated access to everything was one of those things that shaped me into the person that I am today. I do think that as much as possible, we need to be erring on the side of student and people's right to read as opposed to aspects of control, because I do worry when we veer into parental control too much. What we are doing is we are actually reinforcing the book ban thinking around I should be in control of what the inventory of the library is. And fundamentally, I just want to put this on the record here at this forum that I think that this is preposterous. And I think we should be treating it as though it is preposterous. I cited before YouGov data from 2024 that says that libraries are truly foundationally popular. In an area of low institutional trust, we enjoy high institutional trust. We should not be giving more air to fringe opinions about what we do. We should be erring into our own curatorial expertise and erring on the side always of the library workers who are making decisions on behalf of their communities. And I think that was just one part of this question. So I'm going to try to. It was
a pre-submitted
sorry,
question.
Go ahead, Drabitsky.
Marcia, can you read the question again?
Thank you,
Yeah.
Marcia.
Okay, the first part, I think you have it. I think this is the last one that you're looking for. How do we make uncensored accounts of U.S. history available to students of all ages?
And honestly, I wish I had 5 minutes for that question alone, because the challenge of that, right, is the frameworks for publishing and what gets published as much as anything. So I think we need to be thinking about libraries, and particularly academic and research libraries, as publishers, right, and open access publishers of information. Our partnerships with our researcher colleagues in this could be something that could be transformative for education and for the well-being of our society. Great question.
Maria.
Yeah, thank you. I think that we need to fight against restricted policies. For example, bills that would establish book rating systems, bills that create parental control or notification requirements that lead to segregated materials or limit free speech. Um, and I do see that there is a lot of work being done through, for example, the Office of Intellectual Freedom and the Freedom to Read Foundation to help to support communities who are facing these harmful legislation. I think that's really important. And then within the association, it's really important to do education work and CE about the nuances with these like book rating systems and parental controls. In terms of how we make uncensored accounts of US history available, I think that we need to be courageous. I think we need to ask our library people to be courageous about trying to offer as much available to students to be freely available. And I also am curious about national access to materials. For example, with I think it's Brooklyn and some other libraries have offered young adults free access to their electronic collections. I think that might be something worth exploring to be able to offer access in a national way that might not be available locally. Thank you.
Lindsay? Oh, we're to a next question. Apologies. For both candidates, from Susan Davis, core member from the University of Buffalo, what are some concrete steps ALA members can take to flip the script to being leaders instead of defenders? And we'll begin with you, Maria.
Yeah, I love this question. I think one of this was actually came as a piece of advice for me along the way, and I just think it's so brilliant. So when people are meeting with stakeholders or legislators who are promoting adverse library legislation, a great flip the script is to ask them about their library experience, because they probably have fond memories of using their library at some point in time, and asking them, oh, you love they might mention that they love their library, but they're not supportive of this. What do you love about your library? Or can you share a story from your childhood? Like, to get people into kind of shifting by asking them to put forward the things that they love about their libraries. I really think that that is one way that we can help to flip the script. And I just want to say, I am feeling very hopeful. I know it's really a challenging time, but our libraries represent the best of our democracy, and you all give me great help. The fact that you're all here today is a really uplifting and empowering. And I think we do so much for our communities. And I have all the confidence that we can share those good stories out and to talk about the essential role of libraries in our communities. Our communities need us. And that would be, I think, I don't know if that's like flipping the script, but that's what I would talk about in terms of why we do what we do every day. Thanks.
Lindsay?
Yeah, so love the question, Susan, and love to see my core members on this call, home base forever. But I think that part of it is just presentation, right? And it is part of the reason that I chose to put myself forward as a candidate for this role. I think we need to be loud and bold. I think we need to be assertive and visionary and proactive. And I think we are all of those things. I just also think that in general, our humility and our desire to serve has sometimes gotten in the way of us telling our story to its best effect. And so I'm just going to highlight a few examples that I heard even when I was taking meetings across the association. People would say to me things like, libraries are still relevant in the digital age. And I would think in my head, well, not only that, we're leading the way in digital fluency, research impact, and open knowledge. People would say, we're fighting to keep our funding. We're securing strategic investment in knowledge infrastructure. People would say, we're adapting. We're defining the future of information, right? We just need to think about where we can be honest and bold. And I do think that I am particularly well positioned to tell those stories. And I do think that we can do that, libraries, without betraying anything about our values. And by getting on that path, we will secure funding. We will secure our future. We can see the other side of this, but it does require maybe a little bit of us getting out of our comfort zone to have and speak with confidence about what we are doing so well. Because to Maria's point, one of the great joys of being on the campaign trail has been hearing about all the amazing work you're doing. And it is extraordinary.
We have come to our very last question of this forum. I can't believe how the time has flown. We'll end with a question from Matthew No from Harvard University for both candidates. It often feels like workers in different library environments are working in silos from one another, even inside of ALA. Do you have ideas on how we can better leverage ALA to break down these silos and build solidarity across issues, not just book bans? And we'll start with you, Lindsay.
Matthew, thank you for the question. So I do think we have not done a great job connecting areas of the association that are doing complementary work, right? And that is something that it's something that our libraries struggle with. So of course, our association struggles with it. The silos you describe live inside any research library, right? They live inside any library of any size. And so of course, we rebuild that within our association. We have a unique opportunity because we are in a slightly challenging financial situation to think about this really expansively and to think about this in ways that still honor, part of what people look for in ALA is niche, right? Is that person who does the job that is like me. We can still get them that community while providing more expansive community. So, for instance, in conversations I had with state chapters, they're doing a lot of the work that is directly related to the work that our Office of Intellectual Freedom, I'm going to get all the titles wrong and I feel bad and I will get better at it. How do we make sure that they're connecting with each other on a regular basis and getting that information back and forth? It's appointments. It's nitty gritty. It is a commitment to the work being about the communication as much as it is about the outcome of a report or the outcome of a resolution. And I do think that that will require culture change on behalf of the association, but that is the single most transformative piece that we could pursue. Would it actually be bringing the threads of work together? And I'm going to call out the example of a resolution that I worked on as part of my work on ALA Council, condemning white supremacy and fascism as antithetical to librarianship. That work was enriched so much by the fact that it was a group working asynchronously and then visiting various bodies within ALA, right? The Social Responsibilities Roundtable, visiting the Office of Intellectual Freedom, visiting with committees and visiting with individuals who had stakes, right? To develop something that made sense for everyone. That's how we do it.
Maria.
Yeah, thanks for this great question. I think it's really important to bring people together. And I would do that intentional work, virtual networking. So part of this member engagement idea I have is to bring different groups within the association and affiliates together. Maybe it's around a topic, maybe it's just virtual networking. Some of the roundtables, I think the roundtables are doing this, and I think it's really awesome. Making a concerted effort to bring people together and work together. For example, panels, cross-discipline panels. I just hosted a panel for ACERL, and that included both academic librarians, a STEM leader, a nonprofit leader, and a STEM librarian. Programs, bringing people together to work on programs, and bringing people together from disparate lines of work to do advocacy work as well. I also think that we need to bring in our students, and something that I've really made a big effort on is to meet with ALA student chapters. And even within the student chapters, they have all different areas of interest: archives, special collections, public libraries, academic libraries, digital libraries, and bring them in because they are our future. Thanks.
Our time for questions is now over. Each candidate will have up to 2 minutes to make a closing statement. We will begin with you, Lindsay.
Thank you so much again, everyone, for being here with me on this Friday. I wanted to close today by pointing to work that I did with CORE, because Fridays I'm always reminded of the work it took to put that division together and the work it takes to maintain and sustain a community. But one of the things that I am most proud of is that every Friday I would check in via Connect. And sometimes I'd get comments and sometimes I'd hear crickets, but it kept a rhythm for our division, and it gave me the channels I needed to connect directly with membership outside of the hierarchies, again, outside of some of the formal ways that we need to do work for work to be done. It was deeply important, and it remains the heart of my leadership practice and the reason that I seek your vote for American Library Association president. I am not looking at this as a single person presidency. I am looking at this as the opportunity to build the team that will see this association through not just our current challenges, but the other side, reflecting on our amazing legacy that also has a lot of hard truths that we're still confronting and working on, right? To shape a future that we can be proud of and that sets us all up for collective success. I ask for your vote because I know that together we can turn the corner and see a brighter future on the other side. Please take a look at my website, listen to some cool jams, cronkthevote.com, and keep up your amazing work, librarians and library workers. We're more necessary than we know, and I know that it's hard out there.
Thank you, Lindsay. Maria.
Thank you. I spoke about great challenges facing us. We also have great opportunities, even during these challenging times. Our libraries and the programs and services we offer to our communities truly represent the best of democracy in our society. Our libraries and library people are the great hope. You are the great hope for bridging social capital and bringing communities together, for offering learning and knowledge creation from birth to end of life, for helping community members and the next generation to thrive and ethically lead forward. I look forward to using my experience over the past 25 years as a member leader, library director, legislative and intellectual freedom advocate, and international media spokesperson and presenter to help ALA to fulfill its promise to members and the communities we serve. Together, we will tackle the challenges, build a more connected ALA, and honor the vital work that you are doing every day. Please visit my campaign website, mariaforlibraries.com, to learn more about my platform that supports equity and access, advocating for libraries and intellectual freedom, deepening the member experience, and promoting sustainability. Thank you to the nominating committee for this amazing opportunity. To my extraordinary colleagues, Andrea and Lindsay, And thank you all for participating in today's forum. My name is Maria McCulley, and I'm asking for your support and vote for ALA president.
Excuse me. Thank you to both of you. And this concludes the 2025 ALA Virtual President-Elect Candidates Forum. It has been my deep pleasure and honor to moderate this forum. I have to say been looking forward to it since I was elected. And I would like to thank our candidates for their willingness to serve and to all of you who came to hear them today. Again, immediately following today's forum is an informal 30-minute Meet the Candidate virtual session. To register for this session, please click on the registration link provided in the chat. ALA members will have the opportunity to meet with the ALA president-elect candidates. Each candidate will be in a breakout room, and attendees will have the opportunity to visit the different rooms to become an informed voter. Electronic balloting will begin on Monday, March 10th, 2025. Polls will close on April 2nd. We will know the results of the election on April 7th. I encourage all ALA members to exercise your right to vote. One of your member benefits is the right to vote for the association's future member leaders. The 2025 election is an important opportunity for your voice to be heard. This could not be a more consequential time for American libraries, and I encourage all of you to take the time to get to know our candidates and to cast your vote once the polls open. Again, thank you so much, everyone, for attending this forum.
Great job, Emily.